You don't know how long you've been asleep, but something has changed in the air. You wake with your face half sunk in straw that smells of damp cloth, ashes, and the slow decay of years. Your mouth is dry, your hands are cold. There is no fire left, just the breath of night on your neck and the faint ache of a dream already leaving you. Outside, it is quiet, not peaceful, just empty. The kind of quiet that follows after the world has broken and decided not to speak about it anymore. Your bones hurt, softly, not from age, but from memory, as if the body remembers what the mind no longer dares to name. You sit up, and something rustles beneath you. A beetle? A brittle prayer? A piece of the past, trying to get your attention. You don't check. The roof above your head is cracked. The light leaks in like a secret. There are no birds outside, no voices, just wind, slow and searching. Your eyes sting, not from tears exactly, just from the weight of remembering. Your name is not important. Not anymore. The world moved on and left your kind behind, like footprints too large for the trail. Your people are gone, your stories erased. You still remember, but only in pieces, the way an old scar remembers the blade. Once, there were giants, not just tall, terrifying, not monsters, not myths, just men, too big to fit the world politely. No one talks about them now, which, of course, means they were real. The land remembers, the ground remembers, the silence remembers. You remember. And sometimes, in the early morning, before thought wakes fully, you wonder, what if you were never meant to survive? What if the world made room for giants, but not for you? If that feeling sounds familiar, if that kind of weariness has ever settled into your ribs, then maybe this story is yours too. If this story and this channel speak to you, give it a like, share it with someone sleepy, and subscribe for more forgotten worlds. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? Your morning begins the way it always does, with a limp, a sigh, and a sky that doesn't care either way. You stretch your back. It complains. Your knees creak like old wagon wheels. Outside, the wind has teeth again. It smells like ash and old iron. You step into your boots. They're older than your memory of sunlight. The laces gave up long ago. You tie them with a piece of sheep gut and optimism. Your hut leans like an old drunk, but it's still standing, which is more than you can say for most. You pick up your walking stick. Not for wolves. There are no wolves anymore. They learned better. You don't grow food here. The ground gave up on growing things. You walk the land just to remind it that someone still remembers. Down past the creek there's a ridge. Beyond that, nothing lives but memory. And maybe something else. They used to call them giants, but names don't last long. Now they're just shadows, stories, reasons to lock the door even when no one knocks. You saw one once, or part of one. Not alive, just the bones. A rib cage longer than your roof. Fingers the size of farming tools. A skull with teeth shaped like axe heads. You were told not to go. You went anyway. You were young then. Young enough to be curious, old enough to lie about it. Some said they were gods. Others said they were cursed. Your mother said they were neither, just men but wrong-sized. Too big for peace, too heavy for mercy. No giant leaves gently, she said. And she was right, because one passed through your village once. It didn't stop, didn't speak, just moved, the way mountains move, the way silence becomes permanent. You didn't see its face, just its shadow and the absence it left behind. After that, the water well changed. The cows stopped giving milk, and your uncle never came back from the orchard. You think about that shadow often, not with fear, with understanding. Some things are too big to blame, too old to hate. Now the mornings are quiet, but not empty. The land still holds memory like bruises under the skin. It hums faintly if you're patient. You walk past the hill. The trees don't rustle. They listen. There are footprints here, once covered, now uncovered again by wind. Not human. Wider. Deeper. Older. You step into one. Your whole body fits inside. And in that moment, the wind shifts from west to east, like it remembers something it shouldn't. You tighten your coat, not because of the cold, but because of the feeling that something very old is turning over in its sleep and dreaming of standing again. The wind changes. You feel it before you hear it. A soft hush moving through the hollow grass like breath through an old flute. It isn't cold, not exactly, but it makes your spine notice itself. Not fear, just memory. You pull your coat a little tighter. It doesn't help. The fabric is worn, stretched thin across the shoulders, and it smells like dust, wood smoke, and winters that ended badly. The field ahead is flat, brown, a tired kind of land, as if it's been asked to carry too many stories, and no one ever says, "Thank you." Your boots press into one of the old prints again, wide, sunken, a footprint the rain couldn't erase, too deep, too patient. You don't know how long it's been here. A year? 10? Long enough for the grass to grow back around it, but not in it. You step out carefully. You've learned not to linger in them. They're just hollows, you tell yourself. Just old ground. But part of you doesn't believe that anymore. The village is behind you now, hidden behind the bare trees and your better judgment. You haven't told anyone about the prince. Not because they wouldn't believe you, but because they might. And then they'd remember what belief feels like. Better to forget. At least that's what the elders say. Not out loud, but in the way they look at the horizon, the way they change the subject, the way they pretend the well's water has always tasted like rust. You climb the ridge, slowly. Your knees complain again, like they've memorized a song you never liked. At the top, you stop. The view is quiet. There are no fires lit today, no smoke from chimneys, no dogs barking. Just hills, pale, folded like old parchment, too still. Once this land had music, not the kind you sang, but the kind you felt in the ground, a rhythm, slow and strong, like the breath of something large and half asleep beneath your feet. You used to dance here, as a child, before the silence came. Back when your sister still carved birds out of bark and your father still had both hands. Back when the giants were still just bedtime stories. You reach into your coat and pull out a small carved figure, a bird, rough, smoothed from years in your pocket. Your sister made it, long ago. She said birds remember where home is, even if they're blown far away. She gave it to you the day before she went into the hills. You never saw her again, but sometimes you hear wings. Not crows, something bigger, slower, lonelier. You turn the carving in your fingers. The beak is chipped, the tail has a crack, but it still fits perfectly in your palm, like it's never quite left you. You stay on the ridge a while, listening. Below, the valley sleeps the way old wounds sleep, not healed, just tired of bleeding. There's a stump by the edge. You sit. The wood is cold. The wind speaks in little syllables now, the language of grass and memory. And then you hear it. Not a voice, not thunder, something between the two. A low sound, far off, almost below your hearing. You close your eyes. You don't move, not out of fear, but because you don't want to scare it away. It's not new. You've heard it before. Once when the river flooded and the bridge was swept away. Once when the cow gave birth to something that didn't blink. Once in the middle of a dream that felt too real. A deep, steady rhythm, like something breathing, far beneath the surface. The elders say the land shifts sometimes, settles, cracks, but this doesn't feel like that. This feels awake. You open your eyes. The sky is soft gray, the kind of color that makes no promises. You think about going back to the hut, the lean-to roof, the crust of bread you've been saving, back to the fire that needs coaxing, the bed that creaks when you turn, the same 3 dreams on rotation, but your feet don't move. Not yet. Because you know, without knowing how, that something is rising, slowly, carefully, as if it remembers what happened last time. You think of your mother's words again. No giant leaves gently. But maybe one is trying to return, and maybe it doesn't know how. You wrap your fingers tighter around the bird, not for comfort, but as a promise that you will remember, even if no one else does. You stand, your legs ache, your back groans like an old door. You begin the walk back to the village, past the prince, past the stump, past the hill that once sang. The sun is going down, slow and embarrassed, as if it too would rather not be seen right now. The trees begin to whisper again, not to you, to each other. You pretend not to notice. The hut welcomes you with its usual protest, a sagging door and a sigh of dust. You light a candle. It flickers, uncertain. You don't blame it. You sit on the bed that remembers too much. You remove your boots. They sigh in relief. So do you. And as you lie down, staring at the cracked ceiling, you hear it again. That slow breath, far off, heavy, older than language. And this time, it sounds closer. The candle dances like it's listening. Not to you, but to something beneath the floorboards. Something deep, slow, and familiar in a way that makes your skin forget what safety feels like. You lie still, blanket pulled to your chest. The air isn't cold, but your bones curl inwards, as if trying to become smaller, as if you could vanish inside yourself and the old world might pass over you. You don't know what time it is. You stopped counting hours long ago. In this place, there are only 2 times that matter: before the giants and after the forgetting. And yet, some nights, like this one, it feels as though both times are breathing in the same room. The candle leans toward the east wall. A breeze, maybe, but the window's closed. You close your eyes. You try to fall asleep the way you were taught, by thinking of quiet things: bread rising, sheep dozing, the sound of wooden spoons in thick stew. But instead, your mind brings you back to that sound again, the one below the ground, the slow exhale of something enormous and uncertain. You think about the stories, the forbidden ones, the ones people tell only with raised eyebrows and lowered voices. How the giants were made from clay and storm, how their blood was thick as river silt, how they spoke in vowels too wide for human mouths, how they loved once, but not gently. You don't believe all of it, but you don't not believe it either. There are too many silences in the land, too many hills that feel hollow. You roll over. The straw crackles beneath you. Your hip protests. You stare at the beam overhead, blackened by old smoke and older stories. Once there was a girl who claimed to see them in her dreams. She said the giants didn't walk. They remembered themselves across the land. She said they had no kings, no prayers, just names, and that those names were written in earthquakes and echo. People stopped letting her speak. Some said she wandered into the forest. Others said she was taken. You were young then, but you remember her eyes. They were always listening. You must have slept, somehow, because now the light is changing. A thin blue hush has crept into the room. Not sunrise, just the hint of it. The kind of light that tiptoes in, unsure if it's welcome. You sit up. Your back aches. Your neck is stiff. But something is different. The air feels empty. Not peaceful, emptied. As if something was just here, watching or waiting. The candle's gone out. You didn't hear it. You reach for your coat. It's cold, damp at the collar. You hesitate, then slip it on. Outside, the world is fog. Not thick, not heavy, just enough to soften the lines. The trees look blurred. The road has vanished. You hear nothing, not even birds. But there's something else. A smell. Faint. Metallic. Like wet stone or old blood. You step outside, boots crunching the dry soil. The fog brushes your face like a memory trying to apologize. You walk slowly, past the crooked fence, past the well that still creaks, even when no one draws from it. You head toward the ridge again. Your feet remember the path, even if your mind doesn't feel ready. It's quieter than yesterday. Even the wind has decided to hold its breath. When you reach the top, you pause. Below, the field is not empty. There's something in the far corner, low, still, unmoving. Not a man, not an animal, a shape. Dark, heavy, half sunken in the earth like it had fallen asleep there centuries ago and only now begun to shift. You don't move closer, not yet. Instead, you crouch by the stump again, the one that still holds the outline of your weight from yesterday. You pull the bird carving from your coat. The wings are chipped, the edges worn. You hold it tighter. The shape in the field does not move, but you feel it watching you, not with eyes, with presence. You wonder if the others feel it too, if they've woken to the same silence, if their dreams were touched by the same slow rhythm, a lullaby carved in stone and tremor. You want to ask the land a question, but your tongue is heavy. Instead, you whisper, "I remember you." Not to the shape, not to the wind, just into the earth itself. And the earth answers you, not with sound, not with shaking, but with stillness. A stillness so complete it feels sacred. You stay there a while, watching, listening, breathing in time with something far older than yourself. Eventually, the light begins to change. The fog pulls back. The shape remains. It is not a trick of the eye. It is real. But for now, it sleeps, or pretends to. You stand quietly. You turn away. You walk back down the hill. Not quickly, not afraid, just aware that something lost is no longer lost, and that something enormous has remembered you. Back at the hut, you light another candle. This one flickers steady. You sit on your bed. You hold the bird close, and you wonder softly, what if the giants weren't cruel? What if they were just forgotten? And what if they've come back to remember you? But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You don't speak of it, not during the morning, not at the well, not when old Mara asks why you look pale around the mouth. You simply say, "Didn't sleep much," and she nods, because who does? But the image won't leave you, that dark shape in the fog. It wasn't a hill. You know what hills look like. And it wasn't a rock. Rocks don't hum through the soles of your feet. You chew a bit of bread, stale, the kind that makes your jaw earn every bite. It tastes of dust and regret. You swallow anyway. The bird carving is in your pocket. Always is now. Its beak presses into your thigh when you sit, like it's nudging you, like it's saying, "Go back." You don't, though. Not yet. Instead, you fetch water, you patch a roof tile, you chase off a goat that isn't yours, though you both pretend it might be. The hours pass like teeth through porridge, slow and dull, but wearing down all the same. You think of your sister, how she once said, "The world is full of things that sleep with one eye open." You hadn't understood then. You do now. By evening, the sky turns the color of boiled bone, pale, flat, tired. You walk the long way back, not because you're avoiding the ridge, but because you're not ready for what you might see. But you see it anyway, from the path, even through the trees. The shape is different, not risen, not moved, but changed. It's taller, just slightly, just enough to say, "I remember how to be upright." And the earth around it, soft, disturbed, not from feet, from weight. Something has shifted below. You don't stop. You keep walking, but slower now, more deliberate. You don't go back to your hut. You go to the ridge, because pretending not to see it won't make it go away. The wind greets you with a sigh. The stump waits for you like an old friend with hard advice. You sit, and you stare. The shape still doesn't move, but now it breathes. Not loud, not deep, but visible. The chest rises barely, falls again, like a forgotten bellows, aching back to life. You wrap your arms around yourself, not for warmth, for weight. You don't feel afraid, not in the way a child fears wolves, more like the way a tree fears lightning. Not personal, just possible. And then you speak, softly, barely louder than your own breath. I see you. The shape doesn't respond, not in words, but the air changes, like it heard you. You try again. I don't know your name, but I think the ground remembers it. Stillness. Then, a sound. Not speech, not music. A kind of groan, deep and layered, like mountains remembering how to move. It doesn't rise, it doesn't rush, but it listens. That much is clear. And so you talk. Not boldly, just simply. You tell it about the village, about the cracked well and the bread that crumbles too soon, about the people who forgot how to sing and the ones who never learned. You tell it about your sister, about the day she carved the bird, and the day she walked into the trees and didn't come back. You tell it about the emptiness, and the silence, and the footprints that never fill in. You don't cry. There's no one left to teach you how. But your voice shakes. Just once. And the earth, it listens gently. The wind shifts again. East to west now, a full reversal. You stand slowly, your knees crack. The cold has come with the dark. The shape doesn't move, but it no longer feels like just a shape. It feels like someone waiting to be asked a question. You don't know what question yet, only that it must be small and true. You walk back home with that thought in your chest, like a stone still warm from the sun. At the hut, you light the fire. It fights you. It always does. Eventually, it surrenders, not out of kindness, but fatigue. You sit, you untie your boots, you place the bird carving on the small wooden shelf beside your bed. It leans slightly, always has. You lie down, eyes open, staring at the beams. They creak with the night wind. You used to hate that sound. Now it feels like company. Before sleep comes, the last thought in your mind is not fear, but wonder. What does a giant dream of after 1,000 years of silence? But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You don't speak of it, not during the morning, not at the well, not when old Mara asks why you look pale around the mouth. You simply say, "Didn't sleep much," and she nods, because who does? But the image won't leave you. That dark shape in the fog. It wasn't a hill. You know what hills look like. And it wasn't a rock. Rocks don't hum through the soles of your feet. You chew a bit of bread, stale, the kind that makes your jaw earn every bite. It tastes of dust and regret. You swallow anyway. The bird carving is in your pocket, always is now. Its beak presses into your thigh when you sit, like it's nudging you, like it's saying, "Go back." You don't, though. Not yet. Instead, you fetch water, you patch a roof tile, you chase off a goat that isn't yours, though you both pretend it might be. The hours pass like teeth through porridge, slow and dull, but wearing down all the same. You think of your sister, how she once said, "The world is full of things that sleep with one eye open." You hadn't understood then. You do now. By evening, the sky turns the color of boiled bone, pale, flat, tired. You walk the long way back, not because you're avoiding the ridge, but because you're not ready for what you might see. But you see it anyway, from the path, even through the trees. The shape is different, not risen, not moved, but changed. It's taller, just slightly, just enough to say, "I remember how to be upright." And the earth around it, soft, disturbed, not from feet, from weight. Something has shifted below. You don't stop. You keep walking, but slower now, more deliberate. You don't go back to your hut. You go to the ridge, because pretending not to see it won't make it go away. The wind greets you with a sigh. The stump waits for you like an old friend with hard advice. You sit, and you stare. The shape still doesn't move, but now it breathes. Not loud, not deep, but visible. The chest rises barely, falls again, like a forgotten bellows, aching back to life. You wrap your arms around yourself, not for warmth, for weight. You don't feel afraid, not in the way a child fears wolves, more like the way a tree fears lightning. Not personal, just possible. And then you speak, softly, barely louder than your own breath. "I see you." The shape doesn't respond, not in words, but the air changes, like it heard you. You try again. "I don't know your name, but I think the ground remembers it." Stillness. Then, a sound. Not speech, not music, a kind of groan, deep and layered, like mountains remembering how to move. It doesn't rise, It doesn't rush, but it listens. That much is clear. And so you talk. Not boldly, just simply. You tell it about the village, about the cracked well and the bread that crumbles too soon, about the people who forgot how to sing and the ones who never learned. You tell it about your sister, about the day she carved the bird, and the day she walked into the trees and didn't come back. You tell it about the emptiness, and the silence, and the footprints that never fill in. You don't cry. There's no one left to teach you how. But your voice shakes. Just once. And the earth, it listens gently. The wind shifts again. East to west now, a full reversal. You stand slowly, your knees crack. The cold has come with the dark. The shape doesn't move, but it no longer feels like just a shape. It feels like someone waiting to be asked a question. You don't know what question yet, only that it must be small and true. You walk back home with that thought in your chest, like a stone still warm from the sun. At the hut, you light the fire. It fights you. It always does. Eventually, it surrenders, not out of kindness, but fatigue. You sit, you untie your boots, you place the bird carving on the small wooden shelf beside your bed. It leans slightly, always has. You lie down, eyes open, staring at the beams. They creak with the night wind. You used to hate that sound. Now it feels like company. Before sleep comes, the last thought in your mind is not fear, but wonder. What does a giant dream of after 1,000 years of silence? But that is a story for tomorrow night. You wake before the sun, but not because of a sound. It's the silence that pulls you up, not a peaceful one, but the kind that leans too close, the kind that notices you before you notice it. You sit up slowly. The fire is gone out. Your back is sore. You rub your shoulder the way you always do, not because it helps, but because the ritual matters. The bird carving waits on the shelf, quiet and chipped. You place it in your pocket like always. You don't leave home without memory anymore. Outside, the world holds its breath. Even the frost is thin today, hesitant. There's a softness to the air, like something enormous is nearby, but trying not to frighten you. You walk with your coat tucked close, not for cold, for company. The grass crunches underfoot, brittle from the night's breath. The trees don't move. The wind has gone still. At the ridge, the stump welcomes you like always, worn, tired, unjudging. And there it is, in the field, just as before. Still not standing, still not walking, but changing. The earth around it is marked. You see it now. A long groove behind the shape, as if something vast had dragged itself forward. Only a few feet, but enough. The chest rises and falls again, barely perceptible unless you're watching. You are. You always are now. You sit, and you wait, and you listen. After a while, you speak. You're not just bones, are you? The fog does not answer, but the birds return, slowly. One calls from a distant tree, thin and curious. Another answers, then silence again. You take that as a yes. I used to think you were myths, big stories for small people, but now you trail off. Words are heavy when they have to reach across centuries. You reach into your pocket and hold the bird again. You rub its wings with your thumb. And that's when you see it. Something near the shape, in the earth, half covered by moss and dust. You stand. You walk slowly. Your feet hesitate with every step. But the shape doesn't move. It allows you, like a mountain that has decided you're not worth crushing today. You crouch near the edge. The object is flat, stone, carved. Not language, not letters, a symbol. Circles inside circles, spiraling inwards. You brush the dirt away carefully. It reveals a handprint, massive, etched deep like someone wanted it to last forever. You place your hand inside it. Yours fits in the palm alone. You breathe in. The shape exhales. You don't know if it's remembering or asking you to. You look at the circles again. Your sister used to draw these, in the mud, on the hearthstones. You thought they were just doodles, but she called them reminders. You feel something now. Not in your fingers, in your chest, like a knot trying to untie itself. And a question drifts across your mind, not yours exactly, but not entirely foreign. What if they left something behind? Not a weapon, not a warning, but a request. You run your hand around the carved symbol, gentle as if touching a sleeping animal. You say, "I think you were trying to teach us something." The wind picks up again, barely, but this time it carries scent. Soil, salt, something old, not dead, just rested. You sit back on the cold grass, and for a long time, you do nothing. Just watch. Just breathe. You don't ask it to rise. You're not ready. Maybe it isn't either. Instead, you talk again, the way you did with your sister when she stopped speaking after the fire. Softly, like memory whispering to itself. You tell the giant about the village, about how no one speaks of the old world, about how people pretend silence is safer than truth. You tell it about the well, about the dreams that come with bad rain, about the holes in the sky where names used to live. And you say, "We forgot you, but maybe you didn't forget us." The ground does not tremble, the shape does not rise, but something deep in your ribs settles. Not peace, but recognition. You don't remember walking home, just that by the time you reach the door, the bird in your pocket feels warm. You light the fire again. It doesn't fight as hard this time. You sit near it, legs stiff, eyes sore, and you think. Maybe it's not about waking the giants. Maybe it's about remembering what they left inside us. Before sleep comes, you ask one last question. What if the world is waiting for us to answer? But that is a story for tomorrow night. You dream of circles. Not drawn, but moving, widening, tightening, widening again. Like breath, like time. You wake slowly, and for a moment the dream clings to you, soft and strange like spider silk across the face. You wipe your eyes with the back of your hand. The world feels heavier today. Not darker, not colder, just heavier. Like the sky knows something you don't. You rise. The fire's gone out again. You don't relight it. The room feels full enough without it. Outside, the ground is damp with quiet. Not rain, just the kind of dew that arrives when no one's watching. You breathe in deep, and there it is again, that scent. Earth. Stone. The faint taste of old metal in the wind. Today you don't go to the ridge. You go to the village. The path curves through the trees, same as always, but your footsteps feel louder than usual, like the ground wants to remember them. The village is already stirring. Old Mara is pounding grain. The potter's boy is stacking firewood in crooked piles. Everyone looks tired. But they always do. You pass by without much greeting. A few nods, one raised hand. No one asks where you've been, but they notice. You feel it in the glances. Not suspicion, not yet. Just the kind of noticing that people do when someone begins to walk differently. At the edge of the square you find Tomas. Bent-backed, with a beard that looks like frostbite made a home there. He's mending a trap, even though no one traps much anymore. You sit beside him on the low wall. For a while, neither of you speaks. Then quietly, you say, "Do you remember the girl who used to draw spirals?" He pauses, keeps working. "Your sister," he says. "Yes." He nods. "She was strange. Kind, but strange." You nod too. "She said there were reminders," you add. He sets the trap down, wipes his hands on his tunic. "I used to think she made them up," he says, "till I saw one carved into the bark of an ash tree down by the river, too deep for any child's hands." You wait. Then, "Did you see it too?" He gives a dry smile. "Didn't tell anyone. Figured it was just the tree speaking." You reach into your coat. You pull out the small carving of the bird. You place it in his palm. He looks at it a long time. "She gave me this before she left," you say. "She didn't leave," Tomas says. "She went toward something." You don't answer, because you've always suspected the same. "She said the giants weren't gone, only forgotten." Tomas hands you the carving back. His fingers shake slightly. There's a place, west of the ridge, before the cliffs. People don't go there. Why? They don't say. You know the kind of place he means. Every village has one. A space around which memory curls and then retreats. You nod, then rise. No one stops you as you leave, but you feel the village behind you, its weight, its silence, its knowing. You head west, not to the ridge this time, further. The path grows thinner, the air changes, the birds stop. You reach the edge of a field where the grass grows wrong, too stiff, too pale, too organized. As if once something huge had lain here and the land never quite got up again. And in the center of that field, a stone, half buried, slanted. You kneel beside it, your fingers brush away moss, soil, root, and there it is again. Another spiral, carved deep. But this one is different. It glows faintly, not with light, with memory. You place your hand in the center. You breathe in. The earth breathes back, and your head fills not with words, but with images. Hands, larger than yours, placing something inside the soil. A memory, folded like cloth. A voice, deep and low. When the circle is opened again, so shall we be. You pull your hand away, heart thudding. The ground beneath you is warm. You look up, the sky has changed. Clouds wheel above like they've just remembered how to move. You rise slowly, and you feel it in your back, your chest, your legs, like something has been passed into you. A memory, a message, or perhaps just a name. You head back toward the village, but halfway there, you stop. Because the ridge is empty. The shape is gone. The ground where it lay is marked, pressed down, torn gently. No footprints, just space. And in the silence that follows, you understand. It's walking. Somewhere nearby. Quiet. Heavy. Old. You clutch the carving, not from fear, from recognition. The giants are not waking. They are returning. You don't speak for a long time. Not to yourself, not to the wind. The silence is too complete, as if the trees are holding their breath for you. The ridge is empty, but it doesn't feel abandoned. It feels made ready, like the bed of a river that knows water will come again. The space where the giant lay is pressed down. The grass has not risen. There are small indentations around the edges, not from feet, from weight. Massive, patient weight. You crouch, place your hand against the ground. It is still warm, still humming, not loudly, but enough to remind you you're not imagining any of this. You sit on the stump like always, but this time the stump creaks, not from your weight, but from something below. A groan, soft and low, like wood remembering what it once was. You do not move. You listen. And far off, deeper than trees, quieter than thunder, a footstep. One. Then none. Then one again. Each one like a sentence in a language too old for your ears. You stand, slowly. You leave the ridge, not in fear, in reverence. You don't head to the hut, you head toward the trees, the old ones past the river bend, the ones the children avoid, even when chasing frogs. The forest hushes you as you enter. Branches seem to lean in, leaves barely rustle. You walk carefully, and then you see it. Not clearly, not all at once, just a shadow between trees, a shape that refuses to be mistaken. It moves, slowly, with the weight of centuries. One arm brushes a branch, and the branch bends without complaint. It doesn't speak, it doesn't look, but it knows you're here. You freeze. You've dreamed of this moment, you've feared it, you've doubted it, but you never expected this stillness. The giant stops ahead, a few paces from the clearing. The trees part around it, not broken, not forced, just making room. And in the dappled shade of the canopy, you see what no one else has. A giant, not monstrous, not cruel, but weathered, bent, wearing time like a second skin. Its back is curved, its hands are heavy, its face unreadable. But its eyes, those see you. Not just your face, not just your name, all of you. And it doesn't flinch. Neither do you. You step closer. Your breath shakes, but your feet do not. The giant watches. Then slowly, it kneels. The ground shifts. Leaves rise. Birds scatter. Not in fear, in respect. You approach, carefully. And when you are close enough to see the texture of its skin, a map of scars, stone gray and sun-creased, you see something else. A carving on its shoulder, a spiral, small, precise, the same symbol your sister drew, the same you found on the stone. You raise your hand as if to touch it, but pause. The giant bows its head slightly. Permission. You place your hand on the mark. It's warm, like rock in sunlight, like memory waking. You close your eyes, and everything changes. Not with sound, not with light, but with knowing. You see flashes, mountains walking, rivers split to make way, giants building stone circles, not as homes, but as reminders, places where memory could wait. You see war, you see fire, you see the world choosing smallness because it was easier to forget than to carry. And you see the giants laying down, one by one, into the earth, not defeated, but entrusted, left for those who would remember. Your eyes open. The forest is still. The giant watches you gently, not waiting for praise, not demanding worship, just asking if you understand now. You whisper, "I think I do." It nods once, then stands. Branches sway, the ground tilts. You step back, heart steady, hands shaking. The giant turns, not away, just onward. And with each step, it leaves no destruction, only shaped earth where something might grow. You don't follow. You stay. Because now you are part of the remembering. You walk home slowly. You don't speak to the wind. You let it carry what it needs. At your hut, the bird carving feels heavier somehow. You set it down gently. You light the fire. It catches on the first try. You sit, you breathe, and the spiral is in your mind now. Not as a mystery, but as a map. Somewhere, the others are stirring, not just the giants, but those like you, those who remember the sound of something too large to forget. And as you lie back, you wonder softly, what if you were never meant to be small? In the morning, the village feels different. Not louder, not brighter, just less numb. The baker hums while slicing yesterday's bread. The blacksmith leaves his forge door open. And old Mara, who hasn't looked anyone in the eye for 3 winters, nods at you. Just once. But it means more than a full conversation. You nod back. No one mentions the giant, not directly, but the air is full of unsaid things. You pass by Thomas again, still mending traps, still pretending he never stopped. He glances up. "Saw the birds yesterday," he mutters. You wait. They were flying in circles, wide ones, slow. He ties the wire with a rough knot. "I saw that once before, long time ago." You sit beside him. Neither of you say what you're really talking about. You don't have to. Instead, you ask, "Did you ever follow them?" He shakes his head. "I was younger, but not brave." You look toward the ridge. "Maybe now's the time." He shrugs. "Maybe now there's someone braver than me." You both fall silent. Some truths don't need to be said aloud. They just sit between people, like coals that never quite go cold. Later, as you walk toward the fields, a child stops you. Small, dirt on their face, eyes too wise for their age. "You're the one who talks to the ground," they say. You blink. "What?" "I saw you on the ridge, sitting quiet, listening." You crouch. "And what did you hear?" They think. "Not sound, just the feeling of something big under my feet, like thunder but kind." You smile, and it feels real. The child leans in. "My grandma says the giants used to plant memories. That's why the hills remember things." You nod slowly. She's right. The child grins, then runs off. You stand there a moment, not moving, heart soft. The spiral is everywhere now. Not carved, not yet, but in your mind. A quiet swirl of meaning. And then something happens. Not loud, but unmistakable. The earth gives a sigh. A deep one. As if it's been holding something for far too long and has finally decided to let go. The sky changes, not darkens, just shifts. Clouds move differently, shadows soften, and you feel it. The memory isn't just yours anymore. It's spreading. You go back to the ridge. The stump greets you, like always. But there's something at its base today, something that wasn't there yesterday. You kneel. It's a stone. Small. Flat. Carved. A spiral. Fresh. You lift it, it fits perfectly in your palm. Not heavy, but anchored. And underneath, carved into the soil itself, not stone, is a line. 4 words. It begins with remembering. You don't know whose hand made it. Maybe the giants, maybe someone like you, maybe a dream. But it's real as anything you've touched. You place the stone in your coat pocket, next to the bird. 2 pieces of memory, 2 promises. You sit on the stump. You breathe. You watch the horizon. And for the first time, you don't feel small. You feel part of something larger. A story too wide to fit in books, too deep for a single voice. The wind shifts, brings scent of old stone, sun-warmed bark, dust that remembers footsteps. and you wonder softly, what if this was always meant to return, but only when someone was ready to listen? But that is a story for tomorrow night. That night, you dream of hands, not yours, not human, wider, older, skin like bark and broken clay. They're building something, not walls, not weapons, a circle. And in the center, not a throne, but a bed, a resting place, for memory, for waiting. When you wake, the dream clings to your chest like damp wool. You lie still, listening. The wind is speaking again, softly, like a friend who wants you to stay asleep but knows you won't. You rise. You hold the bird carving for a moment without needing to look at it. Its shape fits your palm like it always has, but now it feels like it's watching too. Outside, the sky is silvered. Neither dawn nor dusk, that strange in-between that makes you feel like you're walking between chapters. The village is still, but not in the way it once was. Not empty. Listening. You pass Mara's house. The shutters are open, the first time in months. You pass the well. Someone has carved a spiral into the edge, small, crooked, but there. And then, near the old grain store, you hear it. Laughter. Not bright, not loud. Just a short chuckle. Dry, old, but alive. You turn. It's Kren. You didn't know he was still breathing. Once a mason, then a drunk, then just gone. He sits on a barrel like it's a throne. His beard is wild, his boots are unmatched, but his eyes are clear. "You're the spiral walker," he says. You say nothing. You've learned the value of waiting. He nods to himself. Thought so. I saw the ridge yesterday. Something stood there. He scratches his chin. My grandfather told me stories, said the giants didn't die, said they chose to lie down. You nod. He snorts. No one believed him. I didn't either. But I remember something else now. Something I'd forgotten. He leans forward. His voice lowers. They didn't leave because of war. They left because we stopped listening. You swallow. He points a finger at you, knobby, cracked. But you're the kind they waited for, not kings, not heroes, just someone who doesn't shout over the wind. He leans back again. Make sure you don't waste it. You want to ask what it is, but something in his face tells you, you already know. You walk on, not away from the village, but through it. Every doorway holds a question now. Every window is cracked just wide enough to see the stars. People are remembering. Not fully, not clearly, but the ache of forgetting is breaking at the edges. At the edge of town, someone has lit a candle on a fence post. It flickers in a strange pattern, like breath, like signal. You take the long path toward the stone field again. You pass under branches that move without wind. and you feel it. A low hum, faint, rhythmic, not a sound. A pulse. You stop. The trees ahead part, and she steps out. Thin, gray-cloaked, eyes deep as midnight. You recognize her, but not from life, from memory, from stories. Your sister. She does not smile. She does not cry. She just says, "You heard them." You nod. She reaches into her coat, pulls out something wrapped in threadbare cloth. She unwraps it carefully, and in her palm rests a stone carving, another bird, not like yours, but connected. She places it in your hand. "They gave me this when I followed the sound," she says. "It took me years to understand what they were asking." You whisper, "And what was it?" Her eyes don't blink. To remember loudly and to forget softly. You close your hand over the carving. She steps aside, points deeper into the wood. She says, "There's more." They've been waking for a while now, quietly, slowly, like the earth loosening its jaw. You want to ask so many things. Where did you go? Why didn't you come back? What happened to the giants? But you only ask one thing. Are they angry? She tilts her head. No. They're just lonely. You look past her. The trees seem to lean outward, creating a path, not of roots, but of memory. You nod, and she whispers, "They're not walking towards us, they're walking with us." The wind returns, gentle, curious. You step forward, and you know this is no longer just your remembering. It's a return, not of giants, but of understanding. You walk until the trees close behind you, and before sleep comes that night, one thought stays warm in your chest. What if remembering is a kind of rising? The circle stays with you, even after you leave it, even as you walk the forest paths back towards soil that remembers boots and bread and fences and fire. It hums inside you now, not like a song, like a second heartbeat. You reach the edge of the village at dusk. The sky is quiet. Smoke curls from chimneys, not because it's cold, but because warmth has become ritual again. Tomas sees you first. He's sitting by the well, eyes distant, knees bent like they've always been waiting for news. You stop beside him. He doesn't ask anything, not right away. Instead, he says, "I woke up today and remembered something I never lived." You sit down on the stones. He continues, voice slow. "There was a field, and in it a ring of stones. I was standing in the center. I was taller than the trees, but gentle, so gentle. My hands were full of seeds I didn't plant." He turns to you. "Was that me?" You say nothing, because sometimes the truth isn't confirmation, it's recognition. He nods, as if your silence said everything. Later that night, more villagers wander to the square. No one speaks much, but you see it. One carries a smooth stone in their palm. Another wears a piece of twine tied in a spiral around her wrist. A boy hums a tune no one taught him. And then, Mara. She steps out of her door, wrapped in a shawl the color of ash and dusk. She's barefoot, eyes clouded, hands trembling, but her mouth is set. She walks slowly to the center of the square. Everyone parts. She looks at you. Not as if seeing you for the first time, but as if remembering you from a time neither of you ever lived. Then she speaks. I was 6 when my grandmother vanished. She walked into the woods with a basket and never came back. You wait. She used to draw circles in the flour, not to bake, to mark something. I didn't understand. Her hands open. Inside, a carving. Crude, small, but old. I found this under the floorboard yesterday. I didn't put it there. You rise, cross to her, kneel, take it in both hands. It hums, gently. Mara closes her eyes and sings. Only one line, but you don't need more. You've never heard the words before, but the melody is carved in your spine. The villagers bow their heads, one by one, like wheat before a coming wind. And in that moment, no one says giants, no one says past, because it's not about giants anymore. It's about the thread behind everything, the silent language of memory. That night, no one locks their door. No one dreams alone. You lie on your mat, eyes open, watching the beam above your head. The carving sits beside you. The bird, the spiral stone, Mara's old token, together now, heavy as truth. You think of the voice in your bones. Will you carry it? You already are. You fall asleep with the weight of 1,000 unspoken names on your chest, not as burden, but as belonging. And sometime before dawn, you dream of footsteps, not approaching, not fleeing, just joining. But that, the forest breathes as you walk, slow, deep, ancient, like it's been waiting for footsteps that mean something. You don't rush. There's no hurry in places like this, only rhythm. Each branch above feels older than sky, each root below shaped by what it once sheltered. The bird carving your sister gave you rests in your pocket now, right beside the first. The two pieces feel warm against each other, not hot, just awake. The path narrows. Stone begins to rise in patches, not random, not broken, placed. You follow. Birdsong returns, not cheerful, low, questioning, like even the trees are curious now. Eventually, the trees thin, and you step into it. A circle, massive, overgrown, sun-dappled, half-swallowed by moss, but unmistakably deliberate. Stone pillars ring the edge, worn to near stumps. Some lean, some lie down, some seem to hum. The center is bare, grass flattened in a spiral you could only see from above, but you feel it under your feet. You step into the middle, and you wait. You don't speak. You don't move. The forest listens. And then it arrives. Not a sound, not a shape, not a figure, a presence. Heavy as grief, gentle as breath, familiar as hunger. Your hands tingle. The carvings in your pockets vibrate slightly, like something is pulling them or calling. And then you hear it, not in your ears, in your bones. A voice, low, layered, made of wind through trees and stone cracking in winter. It says nothing you can understand, not in words, but you know what it means. You returned. You swallow. I listened. You whisper. The ground doesn't shake, but your ribs do. The voice again, softer now. A question this time. Not, who are you? Not, what do you want? Just, will you carry it? You don't ask what. You already feel it pressing into your spine. Not weight, but memory. Yes, you say. The wind sharpens, but only briefly. Then it softens again, like an exhale. And at the edge of the circle, something begins to rise. A stone, flat, round. It lifts itself from the soil like a dream surfacing. You walk to it, kneel. Etched into it are hundreds of spirals, some tight, some wide, none complete. You place both carvings on the stone. The moment you do, the spirals seem to breathe, lightless, but alive. And then, behind you, a footstep. You turn. Another giant. Not the one from before. Taller, thinner, skin like dried riverbeds. It stands just beyond the circle, head bowed. You bow in return. It does not speak, but you feel its voice anyway. We did not vanish. We waited. You ask, barely audible, why me? And the answer comes slow and deep, because you didn't ask to lead. You just listened. The circle glows, faintly. Your sister appears at the far edge, nodding once, then disappearing back into the woods. You stand. You place one hand on the giant's arm. It's colder than the last. Older, maybe. It leans down and touches its forehead to yours. A memory floods you, a battle. not with swords, but with forgetting. You stumble, catch yourself. The giant straightens. You know what it's telling you now. It's not just about remembering giants. It's about remembering why they lay down, what they feared. You whisper, "We made the world too loud." The trees nod. The stones shift. The voice in your bones replies, "Then make it quiet again." You leave the circle. Not changed, but returned. And as you walk back toward the village, one truth follows you like a shadow. You are not carrying the memory. You are the memory. And somewhere in the forest behind you, the giants begin to stand. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You wake before light, before birds, before the fire can remember it was ever warm. There is no sound, but something in the air tells you this is the day the silence shifts. You rise slowly, not from stiffness, but from weight. Not the kind that hurts your back, the kind that straightens it. You dress without thought. The motions are memory now. And in your pocket, the carving, the spiral stone, the old token, and the second bird. They no longer feel like objects. They feel like language. You step outside. You expect the path to be empty, but you are not the only one up early. They're waiting. Tomas, the potter's boy. Mara again, holding her shawl like it's woven from promises. And others. Quiet. Unfamiliar faces, but eyes that say, "We remember something too." No one speaks. You don't need to. Because you all walk together. Toward the woods. Toward the stone circle. Towards something older than names. The forest parts gently for you, as if it's been waiting. And when the trees clear, you see it. More people. Dozens. Not just from your village. From beyond. Other valleys. Other ridges. Strangers who are not strangers. All gathered in the circle. Silent. Some seated. Some standing. All holding something in their hands. A tool, a carving, a stone, a broken item remembered not for its use, but for its story. You step into the ring. The air shifts. And from the far side, the giant appears. Not the first, not the second, a third, taller, leaner. Its shoulders slope like cliffs softened by centuries of wind. It enters the circle slowly, respectfully, like someone visiting a grave they helped dig. You don't move. No one does. And then the giant lifts its hand, not in warning, not in greeting, but an invitation. And from the crowd, an old man stumbles forward. Thin, bent, barefoot. You don't know his name, but you know the way he holds his spine. Like it once held something much larger than a body. He steps into the center. His hand shakes as he reaches into his coat. He removes a worn piece of wood. carved into it? A spiral, a handprint, and a word. But not in any tongue you know. And yet, you do know it. Because when he opens his mouth and speaks it, the ground listens, the trees bow, the sky holds. One word, spoken like a bell rung through the bones. And suddenly, you remember. Not a place, not a time, a promise that this would happen. That one day, after forgetting so long it became tradition, someone would say the name again, and the giants would answer. The old man collapses. You rush to him. He's not hurt, just emptied. He smiles up to you. Carried it long enough, he whispers. The giant kneels, bows it said to the man, to all of you. And you understand. This circle was not a monument. It was a vault, and the password was remembering together. Not one, not a chosen, not a hero. Many. Mara steps forward, places her carving at the giant's feet. Tomas does the same. One by one, everyone adds their piece. You add yours last. Not because you hesitated, because you listened. The carvings form a spiral now. Visible, alive. The ground rumbles. Not a warning. Not danger. Just acknowledgement. The giant rises. So slowly. So gently. Turns to the forest. And walks back in. No one follows. Because this was not a summoning. It was a reminder. You walk home in silence. But your silence has changed. It is no longer empty. It is full. And that night, as sleep finds you beneath a sky that seems to blink slower than usual, you hold one thought close. What if the reason they were terrifying was because they never stopped waiting for us to be ready? But that...
The storm arrives quietly, not with thunder, not with wind, just a presence. The clouds gather like listeners, not hostile, just heavy with waiting. They drift low over the hills, casting long shadows that stretched like hands across the fields. People stop to look up, not in fear, but in wonder. It hasn't rained in weeks, but this isn't a rainstorm. It's something else. You step outside, clutching the spiral map in one hand. It flutters, but doesn't tear. Even the paper knows this moment matters. From the tree line, you see Mara already standing barefoot in the grass. Her arms are out, her shawl tied around her waist like she shed something too heavy for today. She turns to you. Can you hear it yet? You listen. And then, yes. The soil is whispering, not in words, in rhythm. A soft, pulsing hush, like breath beneath your feet, like thousands of voices not speaking, but remembering you. Others join in. Thomas, the potter's boy, even Kren, the old drunk walking without his usual limp. No one says why they've come. They just know. The sky darkens, and then, from somewhere below, a sound rises. Faint, metallic, like stone on stone or a gate being opened after 1,000 years of rust. The earth doesn't shake, it exhales. And someone, you don't see who, asks aloud the question everyone else has swallowed for generations. Why did they go underground? The storm pauses, as if even the clouds are stunned by the question. No one answers, but the wind does something strange. It descends. It doesn't rush. It settles. And with it comes memory. You don't see visions. You feel weight. The memory of hunger, of betrayal, of noise. Too many voices shouting, too many walls rising, too much smallness forced on too large a world. The giants didn't go underground to sleep. They went to escape. Not from war, not from weather, from us. We made the world too narrow, too loud, too proud, so they lay down and let time cover them. You feel this in your ribs, in your knees, in the dirt beneath your feet, which once held their weight. A child begins to cry, not in fear, but in recognition. The tears of someone who understands they were the silence in the story all along. You step forward, not knowing what you'll say. You raise your voice, only slightly. Then let's give them a world they don't have to hide from. Murmurs, nods, no applause, just agreement. The kind that doesn't need speeches. That night, the storm passes, but it leaves behind no rain, only stillness and soil that smells older than memory. You return home, place the map on your table, draw one more line on it, a short one, just a curve, but it turns the path into a spiral. You smile, and you wonder, as sleep drapes over your shoulders, what if the giants didn't bury themselves out of shame, but out of hope we'd grow enough to find them again? But that,
In the days after the storm, the land begins to change. Not suddenly, not with fanfare, just gently, as if remembering its original shape. A path that always turned left now curves slightly to the right. A flat field rises by the width of a hand, not overnight, but steadily, as though lifting its head from sleep. And by the ridge where you first met the giant, the grasses grow in quiet spirals. No one planted them. They simply emerged. The children are the first to notice. They play along the new patterns without being told. Their laughter fills the curves of the land, and somehow you know, the giants would have smiled at that. You wake before dawn most mornings now, not from worry, from pull. Something in the earth wants you up, wants you near. One morning you walk out to the edge of the village, and there it is. A stone, half buried, flat. You kneel, brush away soil. It's smooth, but strange. And when moonlight touches it, because yes, somehow you waited until the moon rose, a shimmer appears, not of light, of marks. Faint carvings, curved like sound. You press your fingers to them, and your bones begin to hum, not violently, not painfully, softly, like being tuned. You recognize the pattern. It's not a map, not a message. It's a song. Not one to be sung with voice, but with silence. A rhythm made to be felt. You lie back on the earth, close your eyes, and let the melody run through you. And you understand, this isn't music to perform, it's music to become. The next day you show it to Mara. She nods once. "Stone singing," she says. "My grandmother said it happened before the forgetting." She places her palm flat on the surface, listens, then says, "They're getting closer." You frown. "Closer." She looks up. To waking. You both fall quiet. At the edge of the field, the potter's boy digs for clay. He doesn't go deep, just enough to gather what he needs. But today, he calls out, and what he shows you isn't clay. It's bone. Massive, smooth, too curved to be cattle, too long to be anything you've ever buried. But not frightening. It rests there as if it has nothing left to prove. Mara touches it gently. "We buried them," she murmurs, "and then forgot why. Not out of malice, out of noise. And now that the world is quieter, they rise, not to reclaim, not to punish, just to continue." That night, the villagers gather again at the circle. They bring no offerings, no speeches, only presence. The children run in gentle loops around the stones, their feet soft, their laughter respectful. You sit beside Tomas. He doesn't speak for a long time. Then, "When I was small, I used to think giants were monsters." You smile. "And now?" He shrugs. "I think they're what we could have been, if we hadn't rushed." You nod. Because there's nothing to argue with in that. Later, before bed, you hold the carving of the bird in one hand and the stone song in the other. You don't need to choose between them. One is flight, one is root. You close your eyes and you wonder, what if the giants didn't die, but changed shape into land, into memory, into the quiet between stories, waiting for us to slow down enough to hear them again. But that is a story for tomorrow night. The village has begun to draw spirals in fields, on fences, baked into loaves of bread. No one says why. They just do. The potter carves them into bowls. Mara braids them into hair. The children trace them in dew with bare feet at dawn. You wake one morning to find one drawn on your door, in ash. No name, no explanation, just a spiral. You leave it there. Later, you walk the ridge alone. The bird carving still rides in your pocket. The stone song stays by your bedside now, cool against your skin like breath before speech. At the top, where the stump rests, you stop. There, lying beside it, is something small, a bundle. Wrapped in cloth,
the color of dusk. You unfold it carefully. Inside, a seed. Large, ridged like a thumbprint. Heavy. Tucked beside it, a note. Not written. Carved. Into the fabric itself. 4 words. Plant only when ready. You carry it home without knowing what ready means, but somehow you trust you'll know. That night the wind shifts, carries with it the scent of bark, wet stone, and something older than both. You fall asleep to the sound of your own breathing. It feels shared. In the morning, a child is gone. Not lost, just not where she was meant to be. Panic doesn't spread, because hours later she is found. Not frightened, not hurt, but sitting cross-legged in the woods, smiling gently, beside a massive curved hand, half buried in moss and leaves. It does not move, it does not breathe, but the girl insists it was humming. You ask her gently what it sounded like. She shrugs. Like home. The villagers don't fence the place off. They don't dig it up. They simply begin to visit. Some bring fruit. Others bring songs. No one explains why. It's as if they understand now. The giants didn't go to war. They went to sleep, so they wouldn't have to fight the world we were becoming. And now, slowly, they're choosing to wake. But only if we meet them in stillness. You go to the circle again. The grass inside has grown in spirals. Natural. Unforced. At its center, the ground is softer, as if waiting to be planted. You don't take the seed there. Not yet. Because ready hasn't come. But you begin to sit by it each evening, listening. Sometimes the earth says nothing. Sometimes it says everything. And one night you ask aloud, "Do you want us to grow too?" The wind replies. Just once. It says, "Only if you're willing to grow wide." And you finally understand. The giants weren't terrifying because they were tall. They were terrifying because they were vast, in patience, in memory, in love. And we were not. Until now. You fall asleep with the seed still in your hand, and it hums. But the moment comes just before dawn. No voice tells you, no sign, just a knowing. You wake, step outside. The air is thick with fog, but not the kind that hides, the kind that softens. You take the seed with both hands. It's heavier now, not in weight, in memory. At the center of the spiral field, the earth feels warm under your soles. You kneel. No ceremony, no words. Just a small, deliberate parting of soil. Just enough, just deep enough. You place the seed in the hollow and cover it again. As your hands press the soil flat, the wind curls around your neck like breath from a sleeping animal. You don't rise. You sit and wait. The sun doesn't rise. It simply returns. And by then, others have come. They stand behind you, silent, not to watch, just to be part of it. No one asks what kind of seed it is, because somehow they all know it's not for food, not for trade. It's for rooting something forgotten. That night, dreams come differently. Not as flashes, not as stories, but as waves. One dream moves from child to parent, to neighbor, to stranger. The same rhythm, the same pull. In it, a giant sits in a shallow pool, knees tucked high, hands cupped like bowls. Not threatening, not waiting, just offering. Inside its palms, a glowing spiral. And one by one, the villagers reach forward, not to take it, to touch it, to remember what it feels like. You wake with the sense that your breath isn't just yours. You step outside, and on the table by your door, a book. Old leather, stitched with twine. No note, just there. You open it gently. The pages are thick, dark with time. Written in a language no one taught you, but you understand it anyway. Not because it makes sense, because it feels like home. The first line reads, "To those who came after the noise, we wrote this in silence." You turn the pages slowly, each one written in the same curling hand, each one less like instruction, more like remembered dreaming. There are drawings, spirals, maps with no edges, songs with no notes. Some pages are blank, but you know they aren't empty. They're waiting. You bring the book to Mara. She holds it like it's glass. Nods once. "I thought it had been lost," she says. You ask, "Whose was it?" She looks up at you. "Ours." That night you read aloud from it by the fire. Children lean in, old ones close their eyes. Some mouth the words without realizing. And when you finish, no one claps, no one speaks, but everyone sleeps deeper, and the earth hums beneath them. As you lie back, the carving still warm in your hand, you wonder, what if remembering isn't just looking back, but becoming something again together? But that you wake before the sky changes. The stars haven't faded, but they feel quieter, like they're listening. You rise without thought, The book lies open beside your bed, its pages turned by wind, or maybe by memory. You run your fingers along the spine. The leather feels warmer than it should. Outside, the soil around the planted seed has shifted, not disturbed, not dug, just gently risen, as if something beneath it stretched. Mara arrives without knocking. She stands beside you, shawl pulled tight. She doesn't speak for a while. Then, softly, "It's almost time." You don't ask for what. You already feel it. The villagers gather slowly that day, not summoned, just drawn. They bring small things, a baked loaf, a carved shell, a faded ribbon, a rusted tool. No one asks what these objects are for. They lay them in a ring around the mound, not as offerings, as witnesses. At dusk, Tomas speaks for the first time in days. He says, "I dreamed the hand moved." The others nod. Some say they saw the same. Others say nothing. But they all came. The child who once sat beside the hand stands quietly by it again. She hums, a melody with no clear beginning, and the fingers curl, just slightly, just enough to stir the moss. No one screams, no one runs, because fear has been replaced with something stronger: recognition. The giants are not rising to take back anything. They are rising because we are finally making space. That night, the earth breathes. You feel it not in your feet, but in your chest. The kind of breath someone takes when they're about to speak after centuries of silence. You hold the journal again. A new page has revealed itself. No ink, just pressed shapes in the parchment, raised gently, like a heartbeat. You read it by firelight. When the hand moves, do not ask it to point. Just hold it. That is enough. The spiral grows faintly in the field, glowing, soft like candlelight behind your eyelids. And you understand now, the seed is not just growing roots, it's growing memory, the kind you pass hand to hand, not through stories, but through presence. The sky that night is full of stars, but they don't twinkle, they watch. And you lie beneath them with your hand resting on the earth, and you ask the quiet question no one has dared to speak aloud. If they wake, what are we meant to become? The wind answers, but not with words, with stillness, as if saying, "You already are." But that is a story for tomorrow night. You do not wake with a start. You wake the way trees do, slowly, with stillness first, then warmth, then sound. The sound is soft, not voices, not animals, not wind. It is growth. You step outside. The spiral field glows faintly, like embers hidden under ash. The mound at its center has split, not broken, opened. And from it has risen something both strange and familiar, a bloom. Not like any flower you've seen. Its petals are thick, like bark. Its scent faintly metallic, like rain hitting ancient stone. It doesn't sway, it stands, tall, rooted, reverent. Around it, villagers gather, not to marvel, to witness. No one touches it, not yet, because something is still rising. You turn to the woods. The moss near the giant's hand has parted. The hand is no longer still. It has lifted slightly, palm up, inviting, not demanding. And beside it, a second hand, not massive, not ancient, human. The child. She stands within the open palm, calm, safe, not as a prize, as a welcome. She steps out slowly, whispers something none of you can hear. The giant begins to sit up, not fully, just enough for its shoulders to crest the soil, its face still hidden in shadow. And still, no one runs. No one even breathes loudly. The only thing louder than the moment is the stillness between heartbeats. Mara speaks first. Their rising is not a warning. You nod. It's an answer. The bloom in the spiral field begins to open further. Inside, nothing glowing, nothing magical, just soil, richer than any you've seen, alive, pulsing gently. You understand then this was never about gods or monsters or myths. It was about remembrance through growth. The spiral wasn't a symbol. It was a direction, outward, then inward, then out again. You approach the bloom, kneel beside it. Place your hand into the soil, warm, breathing. You don't plant anything. You just leave your fingers there, long enough to say, I'm still here. The sky dims, not from clouds, from quiet. Even the wind has paused. And from the journal back at your fire, a page curls open on its own. Later, you'll read it. It will say, when they rise, do not ask them to lead. Ask how to walk beside. That night, no one returns home early. You stay in the field. Some sleep, some hum, some simply watch the slow-breathing earth. And in your dreams, you see giants not walking above you, but with you. Vast, patient, curious. They do not speak. They listen. And maybe that's the point. You wake just before morning. The fire has burned low. The journal is warm beside you. And as the first thread of dawn reaches across the sky, you whisper, "If they waited this long, maybe we were worth waiting for." But that is a story for tomorrow night. Morning arrives not with birdsong, but with stillness. A kind of silence that isn't empty, it's listening. The spiral field is damp with dew. The bloom has closed again, folding back into the soil like a breath released. But the earth around it feels changed, more awake, more alive. The giant sits upright now, fully, massive, still half-rooted in earth, but no longer hidden. Its eyes are open, not glowing, not inhuman, just deep, like a sky with no stars, vast, dark, and somehow gentle. No one speaks. No one bows. You all simply exist together. Children move closest, not out of bravery, out of understanding. They walk near the giant's knee. One offers a small pine cone. Another hums the tune that has lived in the soil for weeks now. The giant listens. And then it does something no one expects. It lowers one arm, not to point, not to command, just to rest. Elbow on ground, palm open, inviting. You step forward, not alone, with Mara, Tomas, and a dozen others. You climb into the giant's open palm. It's warm, textured. The lines in its skin curve like rivers, like the very paths drawn on the spiral map. The giant lifts you, slowly, not high, just enough. And there you see it. Not just the village, not just the fields, but the pattern. The spirals aren't decorations. They're a language. Traced into land, into memory, into becoming. The journal lies open back at camp. One last line has appeared. No ink, just faint impressions in the page. You'll read it later. It will say, "You were never meant to worship. You were meant to continue." The giant sets you down. You bow your head, not in reverence, in thanks. And when it turns, slowly, you see others emerging from the woods, not as tall, not as ancient, but unmistakable. Giants, waking, walking, returning. Not to rule, to stand beside. The villagers don't cheer. They simply open the circle wider. Because this isn't an ending. This is a resuming. That night, you sleep under open sky. The spiral map beside your bed. The bird carving tucked near your chest. The old journal wrapped in cloth. And for the first time in your life, you feel something strange. Not peace, not clarity, but vastness. Not in the sky above, but in yourself. You dream one last dream. In it, the giants are not tall. They are patient. And in the center of the spiral, you see your own face, not as hero, not as leader, just as someone who remembered in time. And when you wake, the wind greets you with a question. What will you carry forward now? You smile, because the answer is simple. Everything. But that was the story for tonight. Sleep well, and carry it gently, always.
Some time has passed. How much? No one's keeping track, because the sun still rises and the soil still breathes, and that is enough. The giants walk the edge of the forest now. Not daily, not on schedule, but when needed. Sometimes one appears beside the field, not to speak, but to help lift a stone, to kneel beside a broken fence, to simply watch as the children build towers from clay. You've grown older. Not by much, just enough to notice how soft your voices become, how rarely you need to raise it. You still walk to the spiral field. The bloom is gone, absorbed again. But in its place grows a tree, small, curled at the base, its trunk shaped like a question mark, its branches like outstretched hands. You bring water to it now and then, but mostly you bring presents. And one morning, you find something tucked into the roots. Not a gift, not a sign, a mirror. Small, cracked slightly in one corner, made of polished metal, darkened with time. You pick it up. In it, your own face, but older. Not in years, in recognition. And for a moment, you remember something. The giants weren't terrifying because of what they could do. They were terrifying because they refused to forget. Refused to become small, refused to rush, refused to treat time as something to outrun. And now, neither do you. Later that day, a traveler arrives, dusty, worn. They've come from far beyond the hills. He asks, "Is it true?" You don't ask what he means. You just nod. He lowers his voice. "What did they say?" You smile gently. They didn't say anything. They listened. The traveler doesn't understand. Not yet. But you offer him a place to rest, a bowl, a spiral-marked loaf. And that night, you write a single sentence in the back of the old journal, the one blank page you saved. They were never giants because of size. They were giants
because of stillness. You close the journal, slide it beneath your bed, and fall asleep listening not to stories, but to the quiet rhythm of the land remembering itself. There is no final lesson, no moral, only this. Some things never vanished. We simply grew too small to see them. Until now. Good night. Sleep deeply and carry it onward.